All right, welcome to. I'm back. So, what you are seeing is me struggling with trying to live stream to 5 different platforms, and I'm having a hiccup with YouTube where, as you can see, the event that I scheduled, nothing's going on. But in a new event that's just called multi-streaming with restream.io. I'm there. So anyway, we will fix all of these things because, as you know, I am on multiple platforms now. So, as you know, or if you don't know, what happened last week, last Wednesday, I got a warning from YouTube telling me that I had violated their community guidelines. I did not agree with that, but I understood, why the bot may have picked up some things that it didn't like, and it told me if I didn't agree with it, I could appeal the warning. So I did, and 5 minutes after appealing the warning, they then gave me a strike, shut me down for the week. So I've talked about that in other videos on other platforms. By the way, before we go any further, let me give you where I'm at. You can find me at twitch.tv. You can find me at odyssey.com. I won't be live there. Of course, you can find me live at Twitter for the time being. You can find me live at, let's see, where else am I currently live? Let's take a look. I am live on Twitch, I'm live on YouTube, I'm live on Twitter. Daily Motion, I'm not live there, and I'm live on some Russian thing somewhere. Anyway, so those are the places that I am live, but I also am putting up channels on other video streaming platforms. But for now, we are just going to, let's see, I can probably get rid of this because there's nobody watching that. No, I'll leave that on. All right, so let's get to it. So today we're going to be talking about the power of yin and yang. I can guarantee you that whatever it is you think you know about yin and yang, whatever it is that you've heard, is either outright wrong or is severely incomplete. So I put on here, you can see the 2 different hands coming together. I suppose that's fire and water coming together, but that can represent yin and yang, hot and cold. Today we're going to also, if I get around to it, we're going to be talking about emptiness, what that means, and the power behind that. So, in order to make any real progress in energy work, you must understand the concept of yin and yang. So, yin and yang, let's first talk about in the creation of the universe. In terms of the creation of the universe, we find this in multiple traditions. They use different symbology, but it says basically the same thing. Norse tradition is very similar to this. So what you have is, in the beginning, there was just nothing, just this void. Out of the void comes the one. So out of 0 comes the 1. From the 1, we get the 2. From the 2, we get the 3. And from the 3, we get the 5. And from the 5, we get infinity. So it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 to infinity. So the 0 is obviously the nothingness that existed before anything came into being. And then you have the 1. That would be like the Big Bang. Just all of a sudden, out of the tiniest little spot of absolute nothingness comes all of this matter that explodes into existence. And then as that matter explodes into existence, it starts to coalesce into two. And we would call this the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the hot and the cold, the fire and the water, the male and the female. And then from that comes the three, which is expressed as the Trinity. So three-dimensional reality. It turns into three-dimensional reality. Within that three-dimensional reality, we have the five elements. The five elements, wood, metal, fire, water, and earth, or the Western model, you have ether, air, fire, water, earth, right? Ether, air, fire, water, earth. Okay, so these five elements are not the five elements, that you pick up a rock and you have earth, and you pick up the air. It's not that. Those things are representative of these forces. So these are forces of how energy manifests in manifested reality. So you have expansion, contraction, rising, falling, and centering. As it so happens, the so-called elements also fall into that. You have wood. What do trees do? They expand as they grow. Ether is seen as the most. Western magicians don't know what to do with ether. They think, oh, it's not an element. No, it's an element. It's an element because that is the first action that happens with manifestation, is that it comes into its plasma. It hasn't defined itself yet, but it's still in manifested reality, and it expands. And then you have contraction, which is metal. So just like with the breathing, you have the interchange between ether and air. You inhale, you expand, and then you in order to get rid of the stale air, you contract, you exhale. If you continued inhaling, you'd explode. If you continued exhaling, you would stop existing. So there's this balance between the ether and the air, the wood and the metal, the expansive and the contracting. The fire heat rises, right? Because whenever you have hot air rises, and water descends. It's always descending, trying to find the lowest place where it can go. And then you have earth, which combines everything together. It grounds everything. It's like the earth is a good example. It's round. It's coming together. It's condensing everything into one place. And so matter does this. Matter, I'm going to say, even though this isn't entirely accurate, matter creates gravity. It's not actually true, but for all intents and purposes, it's true. All right, so from those five elements, everything is created. So that's why it goes from 5 to infinity, because everything is actually a combination of all these five elements. It just happens to have more of one element than another, and so we would say that the liver is wood, the heart is fire, etc., etc. All right, so where does all the yin and yang come from? So in this opening here, I'll take the Whoops, I took down the wrong volume. All right, so I was talking about the yin and yang. So right there, my hands are doing yin and yang, and they're switching. The right hand will be yin, and then the left hand will be yin, and it's a dynamic process. Let's watch that again. So what you're going to see is the right hand is going to be acting as yang, the left hand is going to be acting as yin. Don't worry if you can't understand what the hell I'm talking about by looking at it, but just know that that is what's happening. This is, if you've done the yin-yang hands, if you've done the full version of the yin-yang hands, this is just simply an expansion of that. So here we go. All right, so there's right there in that spot, the hands switch. They switch back again. Now, why is that important? What is powerful about that? Because when you have yin and yang come together, when they collide, they create power. This is what happens during the act of lovemaking. The act of lovemaking is what creates children. It's the collision, literally, the collision of yin and yang coming together, and that collision creates, it's a good example is if you get two magnets, and if you put two magnets and you reverse the repul, I think it's if you reverse the poles, you try and push them together, they'll push apart. They won't want to go together, and then they'll flip around like that. It's that resistance that they both have. If you've been in a relationship, you know this. The opposites attract, right? If we're talking about heterosexual relationships, opposites attract. But then once you get together, then all of a sudden the poles split and you repel each other. So this is the dance of yin and yang. So when you have that power in between, which is trying to separate the two, and you start to rotate around that, it creates this friction which creates power, which creates energy. So the dance of yin and yang is what we're going to talk about. So the reason why I showed you this is because it's one thing to talk about it, and then it's another thing to do it. And so by doing these things that I'm teaching you how to do, you are actually doing the act of magic, the act of sorcery. Philosophy is to sit around and talk about things. So if you're somebody that likes to come on my channel, you haven't done any of the practices yet, and you don't really understand what that's all about, and you want to listen to me talk about all these philosophical things, and you think you're accomplishing something spiritually, probably not. You have to do the work if you want to be a shaman, if you want to be a sorcerer. A shaman, a sorcerer, is somebody who actually physically manipulates these forces, and the knowing how to manipulate the forces is what creates the energy. When you create the energy, then you have to then go through the spiritual transformation. So you can do the long path where you sit around and you meditate and you talk and you philosophize about whatever the hell it is, or you can actually just get in there and start playing around with combining and contrasting and smashing together and stimulating the meridians in the body so that the energy is then created. And then when you create the energy, you have to transform. And so you get the same benefit as the guy sitting around talking and philosophizing all day, but you do it with your body. Your physical body and your energy and your soul physically interacts with all of this, and you change. All right, so let's talk about some general things about yin and yang. So what are some of the, I'll just give you a couple seconds. You don't have to type it in if you don't want. In fact, I don't need you to type it in, but just in your mind, just go through, first off, what is yang in your mind? What is yang? List all the things you think yang is. Okay? Hot, masculine, forceful, active, dynamic. These are some things that people would assume yang is. What about yin? Think of some adjectives in your mind about what you think yin is. Is yin is cold, wet, contracting. It's feminine, submissive. Good luck with that one. Those kinds of things. Soft. Yang is hard, right? So these are some real typical stereotypes that people have about the yin and the yang. And I hear this all the time, when people want to, again, talk about spirituality and they want to talk about these things, they'll talk about it and they'll philosophize, but it's one thing to talk about and it's one thing to actually experience it. So there was a book that I read a long time ago. I can't remember the name of it, but it was supposedly written by or about a Taoist master from China who escaped the communist purge of the Taoist temples. And so he wrote about being a Taoist master. And wrote all kinds of crazy, fantasy-like things about, all the stuff that he experienced and he could do, etc. And the guy who was either editing or transcribed it or whatever, he wrote in the beginning, I believe it was the beginning, and he talked about how he was standing on the street corner with Master, I think it's Wang Li Ping. He was standing next to him, and he asked about what is yin and yang. And he said, well, you can't really talk about these things, you have to experience them. And he goes, well, try, help me to understand. So so they're standing on the street corner. He goes, okay, so you see this light pole here? That's yang. You see the traffic going by? That's yin. And he says that's completely opposite to what everybody has said yin and yang is. He said that's why you can't talk about these things, you have to experience them. So if you're thinking that yin is slow, yin is receptive, yin is submissive, you couldn't be more wrong. If you think yang is active and yang is forceful, commanding, you couldn't be more wrong. If you ever look at those pictures of Kali and Shiva, Kali stands on top of Shiva and she's got her left foot on his chest. I think it's her left foot. I don't know which one. Whichever one's up and whichever one's down has a meaning to it. But one of her legs is up and one of them is standing on his chest. And she's dancing and she's full of blood coming out of her mouth. And there's pictures of her mounting him in a sexual way, which people who don't understand get all bent out of shape. Even Hindus get all bent out of shape over that. They don't understand what any of that stuff means. And Shiva is lying there dead. And that's actually a posture. Shivasana is you're just lying dead. So if you think that masculine means active, if masculine means controlling, then you do not understand the masculine. If you think that the yin is passive and the yin is obedient, you don't know what yin is. But this dance of the masculine and the feminine is designed to look that way. When you look at yin and yang fusing, you see the man standing there doing all the work and taking all the responsibility and commanding the situation, and you see the feminine standing next to him, or she has his arm around him or something like that, where she's supporting him and he tells her what to do and she says, yes, my lord, and she goes off and does it. But that's not what's happening. Because what you don't see is, if we take the king and the queen, the king sits in his throne, and his throne is huge and enormous, and he's sitting there, and he's doing whatever he's doing, and sitting next to him on his left side, in the smaller throne, is the queen, and she's sitting there very demurely. But what you don't see is that when they go back into the bedchamber and they're sitting there or lying there and they're having pillow talk, she is stimulating his ego. She is getting him to, she's going to make all the decisions. She's going to make all the policy decisions. She's going to tell him what to do and how to do it. And she's going to make him think it's his idea. He's going to leave there feeling so empowered with himself and feeling so full of himself and having very little clue that it was the queen that was actually telling him what to do. The chessboard shows it to you. The queen does all of the work. You get rid of the queen, you don't got anything to make any moves with. Now, that isn't to say that the yin and the yang haven't been screwed with and messed up. This isn't to say that there aren't a lot of men out there controlling women and telling people what to do. But those are actually men that have no strength within them. So when we talk about the yin and the yang, we're talking about strength and power. Women have all the power. Men have the strength. That's why the master said, see this light pole here, that's yang, and all of the traffic is yin. Because yin is constantly moving and constantly going. Good example, you look in nature. You have the lion. The male lion, big strong male lion, he has all of that, his mane out there. What does he do? He lies around all day. He does nothing all day. And the female lion does all the hunting. Once she comes in with the food, he scares everybody away and he eats everything until he's full, and then he walks away. But she's the one that does all of the hunting. She's the one that does all of the activity. If your typical, again, there's no such thing as a human couple that is 100% yin and yang, but the typical one is the man goes off to work and the woman is home all day cooking and cleaning, and she's got a kid in her arm and another one down here, and she's balancing the books and she's doing all the shopping, and she's working her ass off doing, she's got a phone. Back in the days when your phone was on the wall, you remember that? And if you remember, and maybe some of you remember, if you're young, you might not even know what this was about, but in the kitchen of the house, up until the 80s and the 90s, the kitchen in the house had on the wall, there was a phone. And you knew it was a kitchen phone because the cord that went from the phone into the wall was like all the way down to the floor. And that was so you could be on the phone while you're cradling a baby and you're cooking a food, and then you're walking around outside of the kitchen and you're doing this. I mean, it was basically so that you could have a cell phone, but the cell phone was attached to the wall, and the cord was so long that the woman would be walking around the whole house. And you had to be careful not to get, as the kids were coming in, they had to be careful not to get their neck, hung by the cord and getting wrapped up in the cord. And there was all this dance as the mom was on the phone doing as kids were walking around. If you've been, if you were born 20 years ago or less, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's the yin, the feminine. The feminine, when we look at the masculine and the feminine in terms of, again, lovemaking, what happens is the masculine becomes stimulated, and it becomes rigid. It becomes strong, like the light pole. That's because of what the feminine is doing to it. Again, it's backwards when you look at it. When you look at it in the world, men are running around chasing after women. But if you know in the animal kingdom, it's because there's some pheromones that have been left. And It's just the smell of the, I mean, you know, a male dog will just be sitting there, but if he gets the whiff of the pheromones, that's it. He can't think of anything else. And he goes chasing after that. He can't help himself. He has to, but so it looks like he's the one chasing, which of course he is, but it's because it was the feminine that threw out the invitation. So now that isn't to say that you don't get me wrong, we're talking generalities here. There are men out there that are creeps and that creep around and chase after women that aren't interested. So don't get me wrong here, I'm not trying to feed into any garbage. But we're just talking about generalities. One yogic master said that what happens, like when you're at a party and the man walks across the room and he starts talking with some woman and he asks her out, he says, that's because she sent an invitation through her third eye, unconsciously. She unconsciously sent an invitation, which he picked up on. I've had this experience. I can remember more than a few times. It happened in the grocery store a couple of times. I remember sitting in the grocery store looking at stuff, and all of a sudden I just had this, and things started happening to me physically, and I turned around and there was some woman not looking at me but showing me that she didn't have a wedding ring on, and, you know, and started throwing some flirts my direction. This is the yin and the yang. The feminine stimulates the masculine to act. So if you have a hard-working man, the feminine is stimulating him to act. You see this in CEOs. You see this in alpha male types. You see this in types that run giant corporations. They have a reputation for being you know, they're constantly chasing after women. They're womanizers. They have multiple women on the side. They're constantly seeking out sexual encounters. And that's because if they are constantly moving and constantly going, they need the Shakti. They need the feminine power to give them the ability to go and conquer the world. When a man is in love, you know, he'll look up at the moon and he'll say, I want to climb up and give you the moon. I want to give you the world. She is stimulating him, bringing out the yang in him to go and accomplish. But the yin is also doing its job. So the masculine, if we get into stereotypes, the masculine is direct. Man tells you what he wants. He gets stimulated, he walks over to you and he says, let's go back to my place. And the woman goes, oh my gosh, I just met you. I don't know, let's have a drink, let's talk first, right? So he's just straight to the point. She wants to talk, let's get to know each other. Let's, you know, she wants the whole dance. But the woman is going to be indirect. So the power of the feminine is to be indirect. The way it was talked about in classes for me was that the feminine was considered devious. And that's not meant in a negative way. We would sort of say that with a wink. I had a girlfriend when I was in my 20s who was from the South. And I don't know what it's like there now, but you know, back in the day, Southern women were taught to be indirect. They were taught. That's why, like you see in the old South, you see the woman sitting on the porch, and then there's a long line of suitors, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, all of these men! Oh, you know, get on one knee." You know, she's not direct. She's demure. But the idea is that the feminine gets the masculine to do what she wants. A good woman, what I was taught is, if you want to find a good woman is going to manipulate you to be your best. She's not going to come out and tell you, you know what you need to do. She's going to do something in some way that puts you in kind of a love spell, where she's able to stimulate you in such a way where you come up with the ideas that she wants you to have all along. and then you go out and do it. And so this is called a devious woman. A truly devious woman is a woman who knows internally, she sees the masculine for what it is. She sees the true potential, right? So what does a guy say? A guy looks at her and goes, wow, she's really hot. I want to date her, she's really hot. Woman will say, I want to date him. I think he has a lot of potential. But when things are negative, guys say the same thing. When I work with, when I counsel with couples, the man always complains in the same way. May use different words, but it's always the same complaint. And the complaint is, I just wish she would stop nagging me. I just wish she would stop criticizing me. And that's because when the feminine begins to criticize, one of two things is going on. Either that woman was not taught well. She was not given enough love or support as a child. And so she doesn't have the power within her to stimulate and see the masculine for what it is. She doesn't have the power just with her presence to have the man want to become more productive and more responsible and more awakened. So since she doesn't have that power within her and she projects onto him, and or because she doesn't have that power, she attracts a less than desirable masculine partner. Instead of knowing how to bring out the best in him and see the best in him, she will be direct, which is not what the feminine should be. And again, I'm talking generally. Don't get your panties in a bunch, guys and girls, if you say, I don't, people aren't like that. I know that. I'm talking generally. So generally speaking, if she doesn't have that ability, and or the other possibility is that he really doesn't have, he really isn't acting on his true masculine nature. In any case, if she's criticizing him, it means that she is unsatisfied with him. And she's actually trying to do her job of empowering him. So again, what happens during the act of lovemaking? The feminine surrounds the masculine, which then he becomes more and more direct, right? Fill in the blanks. So if she doesn't do that, then she criticizes, and then what happens? He loses his inspiration to act, shall we say. So when a woman is criticizing a man, it means that her instinct is to find what's best in him and to motivate him to become that. If she doesn't know how to do that, and or if he isn't exhibiting that, then she's going to become frustrated and she's going to start telling him outright, you know what your problem is? You know what you need to do? You need to be doing this. You should be doing that. And then that destroys him. I got to tell you, there's nothing more disempowering to a man than, all it takes is a look. Ladies, all it takes is a look. It's that look where, just that'll destroy a man. Now, the masculine. The masculine is supposed to be strong. Remember the light pole, strength. So there's a difference between strength and power. And without strength, power becomes destructive. And without power, strength becomes useless. So this is why men go, this is why there's such a thing as prostitution. Prostitution is out there so that men can find some place where they can feel empowered, right? So that's why that whole thing exists. An interesting thing that I learned, and I heard this from a psychologist, but once I heard it, I knew it was true, that studies show that men who cheat on women, in marriages especially, men who cheat on women in marriages are doing it in order to stay in the marriage. So they're going outside of the marriage in order to get the empowerment so that they can stay in the marriage that they're in. So for, right or wrong, good or bad, there's something about that marriage that makes them feel unsatisfied. They're not being empowered. So they don't want to leave. They want to stay. So in order to stay, they have to go and get empowerment somewhere else. And so one of the big problems, and I've worked through this as a counselor, is that you've got women who are cheating or are having a relationship with a married man, and they get very upset. They start complaining to me about, is he with his wife right now? I want to know if he's with his wife, because he told me he loved me, and he told me he was going to leave his wife. And I'm like, no, he's never going to leave his wife. He's with you so he can stay with his wife. No, you don't understand. We have such a great, beautiful time together. The sex is so amazing. He tells me he loves me, and I believe it. I say, I know, I'm sure he does love you. But he's getting from you what he thinks he's not getting at home. So he's getting his empowerment from you. And the same statistics show that women, when they're married, they cheat on their spouse to leave. So men are looking for a bridge to stay in the relationship because they want to fulfill their commitment. Women are looking for a man that they can empower, and then that will be the bridge for them to leave. They want to leave the marriage, but they don't feel they have the ability, so they look for another relationship, and then they use that man as a way to get out of the relationship. So this, again, shows the two basic complaints that men and women have. Men say, whenever I talk to them, they say, I just wish she would stop nagging me. I wish she would stop criticizing me. And the woman says, I just wish he had my back. I just wish I could depend on him. The pole, she wants that strong light pole that she can lean up against, that she can surround and empower. So there's usually something wrong on that level. Either the person, the man or the woman, doesn't have or has not developed within them that power of the masculine or the feminine, and or they're with somebody that's not at their level. And so they're complaining along those terms. That this is the opposite of what is presented to the world, which is the man does all the work, he has all the power, and the woman, she sits there and she bows down to him and all of that. That's not what happens energetically. So we then need to start talking about the powers of masculine and feminine. If you are to succeed at this Maoshan, heart-centered stuff, you're going to have to understand the power of the feminine. I'm going to make a bold, generalized statement here, which may or may not be true, but this is I think this is probably the case. If you are attracted to me and to my work, and you're a woman, it means that you have not tapped into your feminine power. And it means that you have given your power away. You either were not taught as a child how to value your femininity and the power of that. As I said, women in the South way back when, grandma used to sit down with those Southern belles and teach them. As I said, I was dating a woman, I'm sure you've heard me share about this story. I was dating a woman in my 20s, and she was from the South. And she said to me one day, she said, I have a gift for you. And I thought, oh, it's a video game. She got me a video game. And I was thinking about all the cool toys that she might have gotten me as a present. And I walk in, and there's a bed. Because I had a hard time sleeping in the same bed with, her. That took a long time for me to work through that, but that's got all kinds of other issues. But she showed up, there's a bed. And I'm like, this isn't for me, this is for you. And she kind of And I said, why do you do that? She wasn't doing her manipulation very well. I said, why do you do that? I mean, I understand what's going on, but she said, well, my mama always taught me, if you want a man to do something, you got to make him think it's his idea. So even though she did a poor job of that, that when a woman wants something from a man and she wants it for herself, if she's not honestly wanting for him what's best for him, because there are women that will do that. There are some women, I was with one who literally, they get excited at the idea of looking at your potential and wanting to bring that out. And they get more and more happy and more excited as the man reaches his potential. And the effect on the masculine is unbelievable. The masculine then will do anything, literally anything for that woman. Will go through anything, will endure anything, will never stop, trying to give back to her. So I can only imagine it's the same on the other end. When you've got a woman who experiences a man who gives her support, gives her strength, has her back, that motivates her. I've heard this a lot. Some comedians even joke around about it and say, a man washing dishes makes me want to suck stuff. I saw that somewhere on a YouTube channel. A man vacuuming the floor, oh my God, that turns me on. Well, it turns her on not because she wants to see him doing woman's work. It turns her on because she feels supported. She feels that he has her back, that he's contributing. That's the turn on. Because in her mind, it means he's participating in the relationship instead of just sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and asking, can you get me a beer, and watching sports. He's not participating. He's the male lion that's just lying in the sun waiting for the female lion to go out and kill a gazelle or something. So in order to get anywhere in this path, you have to understand that power of the feminine. When I first started training in the spirit fighting sets, which I'll show you here again, you've seen me do this, but I want you to take a look at that and see if you can see in these movements what I'm talking about, because this is the hardest part of this practice when you start getting into some physical movements, which we are going to be doing. We're coming up on phase 3 here, where is phase 3? Is this phase 3? Coming up on phase 3 here, which is the power of creation. It's called the hands of infinity. But it is the power that actually starts creating. And in order to do that, you've got to understand the interplay between masculine and feminine. And so the hardest thing for me to do when I first walked into this path was to learn how to integrate the masculine and the feminine. So as you see here, you'll always notice that as one hand is going out, another hand is coming towards the body. You may not be able to see it and everything. But if you were to see me, you would hear me slapping my wrists. And what's happening is there's always some power coming towards you while another power is going away from you. This interchange between masculine and feminine. And when you strike somebody with that, there's what the opponent doesn't see. One of the reasons that makes this such a devastating martial art is that people will see the fist, right? If somebody's getting punched with a fist, what they don't see is that there's a feminine hand coming around and hitting you on the back of the head. So what's actually happening is the left hand is hitting the back of the head and pulling it towards you while the right hand is coming and making contact. Now, I do that and this is what you see, but what you don't see is that this hand is hitting the guy on the back of the head, bringing his head towards the fist. And so the combination of yin and yang is what makes it so devastating. And what's different about that is that this is a dynamic continuation. I got this little thing here, do you see the yin and yang are separate? That's actually a sign of power. When you see the yin and yang drawn together, then it's the fusion. But when you see them slightly pulled apart, that is dynamic, and that is incredibly powerful. And so unlike Tai Chi, where you see the movement here and the hand is up or it's down or it's out or it's in, you combine the two. And one hand is coming in while one hand is going out. And they crack together. That kind of stuff. Now you put that with no muscle and no physical force, and the only thing that can come out is pure energy. So when I'm doing these practices here, which I have reverse engineered for the upcoming phase 3, when you see me doing these practices here, what's happening is that I'm using no physical strength whatsoever. So even though I go to the gym and I lift weights, that does nothing for this practice. And so it gives you a lot of speed, but what comes out of the hands is pure energy. And there are three major, well, there's the 5 elements, which I'm doing right there, but there are 3 major forms that are done that have to do with different phases of this power. And the first one is called the hands of creation, the hands of infinity. And this is what I'm going to be teaching you. I'm not going to be teaching you the form as it was originally taught, because that's too complicated. I can't do that on video, and I wouldn't thrust you into that without having, worked with you in person for a while. Maybe someday, if the lockdown falls down and people are willing to travel, maybe I'll teach it in a group setting, but don't hold your breath. So in order to understand this, you have to understand the power of the feminine, because each one of those movements that you saw me do, it looks like a normal kung fu thing, but what's happening is that the placement of the hands is stimulating specific meridians that go straight into the heart center. And in the heart center, you have yin and yang, you have masculine and feminine. And if you do just about any spiritual practice, when you get to the heart, you're only going to be tapping into the masculine, which is the soul, which is what, oops, I forgot to put that there, which is what they call Shen, S-H-E-N. That's the masculine part of the heart center, which is the soul. But what you haven't been taught about is the feminine part, which is the Shin, S-H-I-N. The Shin, or the X-I-N, Shin, the heart mind. That power is feminine. And that power is the most powerful energy source that you can tap into in the body. But you're going to have to learn how to really understand the feminine. The feminine is ironically, on an energetic level, direct. The masculine is actually slow to act. So again, we go back into the dating world. What happens? The guy, first off, right off the bat, wants to take you to bed. He seems to be really direct and wanting to take the relationship to the next level. And the woman says, no, wait, let's go out. Let's talk first. Maybe on date 3, 4, or 5. But I don't see a ring on this finger, that kind of stuff. She says, I want to take my time. I want to see something from you. But that's because what she really wants is she wants to get to the relationship as fast as possible. She wants to get to the commitment. She's holding out because she doesn't know that you're going to go the whole distance. She wants to go straight to the relationship as fast as possible. Again, we're talking generally speaking. I know that you're human and you're different. The man says, I want to get right to it, but I'm not ready for that. I don't want to commit to anything yet. This is why men don't want to say, I love you. Women, you're wondering, why doesn't he tell me he loves me? Because if he tells you he loves you, it means that he's fully committed to you for the rest of his life, and that's too frightening for him. Whereas for you, it's just you're getting direct with your emotions. You have a feeling and you tell him, I love you. But he doesn't, for him, that means something else altogether. So again, the masculine is direct, the feminine is indirect, but when you present it to the world, it presents the opposite of itself. And so when you do a normal practice and you go straight to the heart, you think you're going to the soft, squishy part. You're actually going to the masculine, which is the soul. The feminine is the most powerful. Now, the feminine without the masculine becomes chaos. That's why in all of the old fairy tales, the bad person was an evil witch, because she represents the power of the feminine that has no masculine to hold her in place, right? So whenever you see, and if you're new to the channel and you want to start meditating on all this stuff, then you can do, this is something you see everywhere, where, I'll put it here, you have the right hand like at the heart center, and you have the left hand like a plate that you hold it down at the navel. If you want to just do that, just hold that position and meditate on that position, you will start to experience the yin and the yang. The right side is the yang, the left side is the yin. And this, you'll start to feel the polarity between the two. This is why actually the right arm goes to the left brain and the left arm goes to the right brain. That's why the left brain is more masculine than the right brain. The right brain is more feminine because it's tapping into the left side of the body. There's a reason all this stuff is there. But even in the way the body is made up, you've got the polarity between the right side of the head and the left side are connected. So you see this interplay between yin and yang, right? All right, so I babbled on and on about that, but the point being is that it's time to start meditating on the true power of the feminine. It's time to bring back the power of the feminine. And ladies, when I talk to you about this and you feel disempowered, like ladies, if you are tired, there's a reason why women get fibromyalgia more than men. I'm assuming that's the case. I don't know if it is, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Fibromyalgia is one of those diseases that, scientists, doctors say, we don't know what causes it. We don't know what physically causes it. But the nerves are shot and you have no strength and you have no energy. It's because your Shakti is all gone. You don't have any Shakti within you. You don't have any feminine power. It's all gone. How that happened, you can tell me the long story, but more than likely you gave your energy away to the masculine and you got nothing in return. And you got the impression that your job as the feminine is to be this submissive person that takes all the weight on top and you have to do all the work, and you got criticized and you feel unloved, unseen, disempowered. You don't have any Shakti. So if you're doing this, then you're going to have to learn how to tap into that feminine and not have it turn into chaos, not have it turn into destruction, not have it turn into angry, vengeful witch power. Because that's where you find out, that's where you get those the dark evil, the wicked witches. That's where they come from. They were little girls that didn't get the ability to foster and create that feminine power within them. And so when they finally do get a hold of that feminine power, it's going to make the masculine pay. It's going to destroy the masculine. Men, if you're listening to me and you feel ineffectual, you feel weak, you feel embarrassed, you feel that women are laughing at you, women make fun of you, that, this is where MGTOW comes from. The MGTOW is very sad. Men go their own way. These are men who were not given the ability to individuate and find the strength within themselves And so because they believe that they don't have any strength, because they feel disempowered, I'm quite certain if you talk to a MGTOW and you're able to get them to be honest, you're going to find out that they had a mother that was critical. A critical, unloving mother. Because that's what the feminine does when the feminine is disempowered. When the feminine doesn't have the masculine to feel strengthened by, to feel that she is supported, loved and adored, empowered. I want him to have my back. I just wish I could depend on him. If she doesn't have that, then her initial instinct to look at her masculine child and say, you are amazing, you can do anything, I am so proud of you, you're such an amazing young man. Because she doesn't have the ability to do that, her instinct to get him to succeed still comes through, but it comes out in criticism. You're never going to amount to anything. Why are you so stupid? Whatever the hell it was. So every MGTOW, no doubt in my mind, I don't even have to know you. You don't have to tell me anything about you. I already know your mother wasn't there for you. I already know. Your mother didn't love you unconditionally and teach you how to be empowered within yourself. And ladies, those of you who dated all those abusive guys, you went out and then you thought, maybe if I give him a child, maybe then he'll love me. Maybe he'll see my worth if I give him a child. You know, some women do the most amazing things where they actually go and work. They meet these loser guys, you know, that sit around all day playing video games or watching sports or smoking weed or doing crack or whatever it is, drinking all day. And the women go out and work and come and support the guy. And he says, yeah, I'm just in between jobs right now. Get off my back. Get off my back. I'm in between jobs. You know, I'm doing my best. It's amazing. If that's you, it means that you weren't given the understanding of your value as a woman, the power that you have, how when you tap into that feminine power, how a man, when he sees that in you, he will do anything to have you in his life. He will, you know, there was one of my favorite cartoons is Futurama. And they were in a factory there where they were making the Valentine's Day really crappy little chalk heart candies. And they were testing out little phrases to put on it. So there was this long line of women, and there was this computer with a mouth that, you know, was made out of chicken wire that had the outline of a man, and it was just a mouth. And this mouth would then say these phrases, and there would be people there testing to see the response. Right? So one woman walks up and he goes, "Wow, nice cans." To which she spit on it and walked away. Another woman walks up and the little chicken wire with a mouth says, "My two favorite things are," oh, crap, I always get this wrong. "My two favorite things are commitment and changing myself." To which she just throws herself over and starts making out with the chicken wire with the mouth on it. And then the girl looks over and says, "Does he have a brother?" "My two favorite things are commitment and changing myself." Well, that represents what a man will do if he feels that the feminine is reflecting back to him his highest potential. The most powerful experience I had with a woman was she looked at me and she started telling me, started explaining, started talking about me in ways as though it were a fact now, and she was telling me about things I hadn't accomplished in myself yet. And she was talking as though it had already happened. She saw it in me. She wasn't kissing my ass. She was telling me, these are the things I really like about you. And that experience changed me. And I became what she saw in me. So if you want to tap into this power that we're talking about, you're going to have to tap into that feminine, because it's the feminine power that is surrounding the masculine. The soul is sitting in the middle of this feminine lightning power, the pure Shakti, lightning going in all different directions. That power is feminine. The strength is masculine. Now, the masculine is the soul. The soul is the essence. The soul is the essence of the universe. But that essence cannot exist without the power surrounding it. The power of the feminine is completely focused on the soul. Protect and empower the soul at all costs. To tap into that feminine power is what we're doing. Every time you do the practices that I give you, you are tapping into that feminine power. And the more that you can learn to accept that within yourself, the more that you will gain power in this path. That means having direct access to your emotions, because generally speaking, what are women known for? Being emotional. You have to be able to tap into the emotions. That's why when you do the 5 element exercises I've given you, what's the first thing that happens? All of your feelings start to come up. You have to have all of your feelings. So if you don't have all of your feelings, then you can't let go, that lightning energy can't let go of the wound that it's protecting. All right, so this is where we're going to be headed. I know I've talked in a bunch of different directions again. And I'm also trying to figure out how to do this this multiple platform streaming thing, which I'm still on 1, 2, 3. Apparently I'm still on 5 different platforms here. All right, so I'm happy to take questions here. Let's take a look. God Emperor asks, how did you get YouTube live streaming back? I was only blocked for a week. I didn't get it back. I was only blocked for a week. Jameson-san, question. Your maxim, responsible for knowledge given. How can I know diff attempting to avoid responsibility versus limit recognition? I delay listening to teachings due to fear of responsibility. Jameson, I got to be honest, I don't know what the hell that question means. I see in it what I often see in you, which is you just are so hard on yourself. I mean, stop beating yourself up. All of these questions are, look, you were trained to devalue yourself. I mean, your origin story was that you were just constantly devalued. I mean, take what I said about the feminine. If the feminine does not have individuation within itself, then its response to the masculine is to criticize it. So the only way that you knew how to receive love was to be criticized, to be devalued. And so you're doing it to yourself. Just give yourself a break. You don't have to figure all this stuff out. Just be. Just be. Let's see. I delay listening to teachings due to fear of responsibility to self-improve and become responsible. Who told you you're supposed to become responsible? Remember what I said earlier. What does the feminine say when it's disempowered? It says to the masculine, I just want to know that you have my back. So your whole life, because you were programmed by a dysfunctional feminine, is to feel that your job is to be responsible for everything. And that's just not the case. Just stop beating yourself up. Basically, how can I be certain that a limit recognition isn't enabling self-destructive behavior? By just seeing if your life gets better. Are you doing better financially? Are you doing better physically? Are you having more emotions? Are you able to process your emotions better? Just look at that. Just know that there's going to be a time when you are going to be, your instincts are going to be telling you the exact opposite. That when you're making progress, you're going to want to beat yourself up more. You know, Jameson. You're welcome to ask me the question as many times as you want, but just want to again let you know you keep asking me the same question over and over again. And when you can see that, question, clearly every time this problem comes up, you'll be better off. But bottom line is just stop beating yourself up. Don't avoid learning things. Don't avoid doing things because you're afraid you're not going to do it perfectly. Because you're afraid you're not going to be responsible. Because you're afraid you're going to be a bad boy and be self-destructive. That's all garbage in your own head. None of that has ever described to me my experience of it. You're conscientious, you're caring, you're loving, you're hardworking, and you do want to be the best person you can be, and you're learning how to do that. I don't know if I answered your question or not. All right. Asako gives me a compliment. Thank you. Strom Carlin, question: how does one become a Mahadeva? I don't understand what that question is. Are you honestly asking me that because you want to become whatever you think a Mahadeva is? Or are you passive aggressively asking me, how do I dare call myself that? Or are you thinking that I've achieved some kind of state of being that is, that there's like Mahadevas? Be honest with your question. If you're able to be honest with your question, I can help you. If you're asking me, how do I dare call myself that, then just be honest and say that. If you're thinking that I've achieved, that this is a title, ask me that. Until then, this is how things work on my channel. I want to interact with people who do one of two things. I want you to ask me an honest question. An honest question is, you think that I have knowledge that you don't, and by asking me, I can help you better your life. The other one is an honest feeling. An honest feeling would be, let's say, if it bothers you that I have given myself the name Mahadeva, an honest feeling would say, when you call yourself Mahadeva, it really bothers me. I feel offended by that. That's an honest feeling. You can have all the negativity directed towards me you want. I'm not going to judge you for that as long as it's an honest feeling. If that's a passive-aggressive question of how does one become a Mahadeva, then you're not going to get a good response from me. All right? If that's an honest question, like you think that's some kind of a state of being that I've achieved, and that's an honest question, then ask me that. So try again, and let's see how we can go from here. All right, so Supermanem, is that a guy? Yeah. I said I love you to my ex, but she dumped me for another man. I don't know how to respond to that. Again, we're talking generalities. There are human beings that do different things. I don't know what you want me to say to that. Did you just slap her across the face and then tell you loved her? Were you a really good man? Is she able to handle real love? I don't know anything about you and who you're with, so I'm sorry you went through that. That's not a question. Bobby Big Boy. Question: would a woman sleeping with a lot of men cause her to lose feminine energy? Why? Why are you asking me this question? What does that have to do with you? Look, the other thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get a sense of what's really underneath the question. This question to me feels like what you want me to do is you want me to co-sign your judgment against some woman. You say she recognizes herself as a witch. I think what you want me to do is you want me to co-sign that she's sleeping with a lot of men and losing feminine energy, and therefore she should just sleep with you. And I don't know anything about your relationship. I don't know if you guys are are together? Are you asking me that so you can go to her and say, yeah, I talked to this spiritual guy and he says that, women who sleep with a lot of men lose feminine energy, and you shouldn't do that. You should just sleep with me. I don't know why you're asking that question. So tell me the context behind the question. I'll be better able to help you, and make it about you. Don't ask me a question about somebody else. That's none of my business. She hasn't asked me. She hasn't come to me and said, hey, I'm sleeping with a lot of men. Do you think I'm losing energy? You're doing it for her, which means it's about you. You obviously, I'm willing to bet, you're into her and you want to date her or you want to sleep with her or something like that. So just be honest, give me context, and if I can, I will help you. Zeralath, question, how did my grandmother on my father's side as a larger mother role affect me? How am I supposed to know that? Am I psychic? How am I supposed to know that? I don't know anything about that. It's a great question, but that's the kind of question you go to a therapist that you've been with for months or years who knows everything about you and can tell you your relationship with your grandmother. Now, I said some things to Jameson, but that's because he's my apprentice and I talk to him on a monthly basis, and I've been doing it for a while and I know a lot about him. I don't know anything about you, Zeralath. How am I supposed to know how your grandmother on your father's side as a larger mother role affected you? I don't know anything about who she is or who they were. So, great question. Unfortunately, I can't answer. All right, let's see. Strum Carlin. Question, can you give me a structure plan to have a successful shamanic journey? Hi, Strum Carlin. So I have a YouTube channel. It's called thunderwizard.com, DOTCOM. On that channel, I have over 1,000 videos. And you can search my channel for anything if you know how to do that. If you're on a laptop like me, you can go to the thunderwizard.com YouTube page and you'll see the top menu where you can search all over YouTube, and then you'll see a menu that has videos about, and then there'll be a magnifying glass. You click on that and guess what? You can search within the channel. If you type in shamanic journey or how to shamanic journey within my channel, videos will come up, and one of them will say the 5 steps to a successful shamanic journey. So I invite you to do that. Again, I think it's one of the things that's lacking a lot. The way, it's not everybody's fault, because YouTube is designed to get you to bounce around to a bunch of different places. It doesn't want you to stay in one place. And so learning how to search within somebody's channel is a really helpful thing to do. So look at my playlists, look at that. If you want really in-depth, structured approach, then go to thunderwizard.com, because you can subscribe at the lowest level, which is the Mastery of Shamanism. You guys, these links are here for a reason. They're not, I realize most people don't see them, but I have, 1/3 of my whole, camera space devoted to it, because I want you to click on them, because the resources are there for you. All right, hope I answered your question. Search within my channel or subscribe at the thunderwizard.com, and you can learn step by step all the things that I have to teach about shamanism. Maclovia says some nice things. Nice to see you, Maclovia. Inderjeet Maman, question. Thunder Wizard, did Loki become dreadful and mad at the Aesir because of Gulveg the Witch? Can you maybe comment? So Inderjeet, I'm so happy you're on my channel, and I'm so happy that you're gaining from my channel. I would like for you to spend more time focusing on what I'm teaching. So today I'm not talking about that. So I'm not talking about Loki today, but I appreciate the question. Rune, question. Do you believe a relationship can survive after one person cheats on the other person? How am I supposed to know? That's a huge question. And you're not giving me the valuable information. You're not asking that question because you're just sitting around wondering, I wonder if... You're asking that question because you've experienced it. So it's really important, if you want to get anywhere with me, to be able to be vulnerable with the feelings that you have. Do you really want to ask me, I cheated on my partner and we're back together, but I don't know if it can survive? What can I do to keep my relationship going? Or are you saying, my partner cheated on me and I can't seem to forgive them, and I don't know if we can survive this? Be honest with your question, be direct, be vulnerable, reveal something, because otherwise it's just a bunch of intellectual garbage. And the truth is, how the hell am I supposed to know? I don't know anything about you. There are some relationships that survive infidelity just fine. In fact, it makes it stronger. There are some relationships that it destroys them and they can never resolve it. It also doesn't let me know what led up to it, what caused it. I don't know if any of that stuff. Okay, my partner, a man, cheated on me. You still haven't asked me the question. Ask me the question you want to ask. And it has to do with you. Be vulnerable with your emotions about this. Okay. Ayasco, is rheumatism due to lack of Shakti in the body? I don't know. I honestly don't know what rheumatism is. I'm not a doctor, so I can't answer that. Zeralath, clarifying. My grandmother, in context of being the mother figure, I have empowerment struggles with the women I date and leave them or they hate me. Again, I don't know enough about you. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you're wanting me to tell you how your grandmother disempowered you? I mean, that's what you're trying to tell me? How did my grandmother on my father's side as a larger mother role affect me? My grandmother, in context to being the mother figure, I have empowerment struggles with the women I date, leave them. I don't know. I don't know enough about your grandmother. You're asking a question that, needs in-depth discussion. I would need to be on the phone with you or on Skype, and I would need to have an hour or longer to be asking you a ton of questions to find out more interactions about what went on. Sorry. You guys, you got to ask. See, here's the thing. I'm going to say something, and maybe it's going to hurt some people's feelings. I don't know. The people who are doing the least amount of work with all of this stuff are the ones that tend to ask the more generalized, intellectualized questions that I have a hard time answering. So when somebody's new on the channel, they'll ask me a question. And then I'll say, what am I supposed to do with that question? That's such a huge question. The people who are working with me, who are doing this, who are reading the books, who are doing the practices, who are my apprentices, they are able to ask questions that I can answer, more directly. All right, what else? Lushka, you skipped my question. Oh, sorry about that. Lushka, question. Great to see you, Mahadeva. If the gods and ancestors are connected through the third eye, that's an assumption. Did I say that? I don't think I said that. If the gods and ancestors are connected through the third eye, would the dark gods also be connected through the third eye or the navel center? I don't know what to do with that question, because number one, there's an assumption that I'm not. This is, again, ask questions about what I'm teaching today, what I teach in general. I don't know that I've ever said, if I have said, that the gods and ancestors are connected through the third eye. But why do you care about the dark gods? And what are your assumptions about the dark gods? When have I ever made a video about the dark gods? You mean the demons? And why is that a problem for you? Why are you afraid of dark gods connecting you through your third eye? Again, it all tells me that you're new to the channel, or you're on the periphery. You haven't done the work. You haven't done my practices. You haven't worked with me, because none of that is anything that I've ever taught. You have to be careful when you work with the gods that the dark gods don't sneak in. I've never said anything like that. What I talk about demons is that demons, if somebody has a problem with demons, there's a person who asked me a question just recently that said, Nagas are attacking me, can you help me? To which I responded, watch my video about demon possession. Then they came back and then they asked the question again in the same way, a little differently, but the assumption was there that the demons did something to them. But the thing is that no negative power can touch you without your conscious or unconscious invitation. So the assumption in your question is that it's arbitrary, that you're opening up your third eye and just whatever's out there can just come flying into your third eye just because you opened it. And then there's this assumption that your third eye being open means something. There's just all these assumptions in that question that none of which I've ever taught. But the bottom line is that any negative out there, first off, I don't believe in such a thing as dark gods. I don't believe in that. I just don't see the universe that way. You know, there's gods and there's powers, and then there's the giants, and then there's demons. Demons are way down here. Demons are less powerful than humans. So to say there's like these dark gods you have to watch out for, I mean, I've never once in my life ever taught anything like that. Okay, so stop worrying about the third eye. You don't have to worry, you know, and I don't know why you have made the assumption that working with the gods and the ancestors has to be through the third eye. Why do you, I mean, this is, you can tell that I'm annoyed by the question, so don't take it personally. But here's what's annoying me about the question. I get annoyed by questions that to me feel like they operate from a victim mentality. And I also get annoyed at, you know, like modern Western magic or New Agey stuff that aren't connected to real traditions. They're people philosophizing and talking about stuff, and they come to these conclusions that haven't come from actual practice and experience. There's a lot of people out there that think that opening the third eye means something. That if you open the third eye, you'll be able to see into other realms, and that's just not how it works. That is one of the least important things to do. It's a natural thing that happens when you empower all these three things. Trying to meditate to open the third eye doesn't do anything. Taking ayahuasca or other entheogens that opens the third eye, all that's happened is that you have blasted open your energy centers and your unconscious mind filters up and you think you're having a vision. If you're lucky, you might actually have a vision because you have a shaman there who's guiding you, and or you are empowered within yourself and you're able to actually, you know, create a true vision or a connection with a deity. But 99% of the time, every vision that happens as a result of somebody taking some drug, they're just indulging in their own unconscious fears or fantasies. And so that's what this feels like. It feels like somebody's taught you that opening up the third eye will connect you to the spirit, and it's the gods that connect to you, and then there's the dark gods, and you have to, that's what it sounds like to me. And it's annoying to me because I don't teach any of that. So that's why I get annoyed when people come in and they start asking me questions about stuff I don't teach. It tells me that you're not taking this seriously, you're not doing any of this. And you're right, you don't have to. But I'm just being honest with you, it annoys me. Anyway, bottom line, the nicest way I can respond to that is that that's an inaccurate assumption. The gods and the ancestors are not solely connected through the third eye. That's not what happens. There are no such thing as dark gods that are out there that you have to be careful of, that are going to slip into your third eye because, you know, you opened a portal and you have to. That's all a bunch of Christian nonsense. Would the dark gods be connected through the third eye or the navel center? Again, dark gods, I don't know what that means. I don't teach that. So, sorry. Thank you for the question. My apologies for being so annoying about it, but I just think the question is based in some false assumptions, so I can't answer it. All right, what else? Zach Johnson, question, is there such a thing as a fourth eye? Where is it located? What did I just say? Don't ask me questions about stuff I don't teach. Zach Johnson, have you done any of this stuff? Are you doing any of the work? I can't answer that question. I never have once taught about a fourth eye. Storm Carlin, again, somebody who's new to the channel. Have you ever traveled to Lemuria? No. Have I ever taught anything about Lemuria? No, I have not traveled there. Pepsi Cola question, did the Hool breath, this person says, I did the Hool breath a few times and my hands feel different and a cooling sensation connects from hands to heart. Is this normal? That is a normal reaction to the Hool breath. So those of you who are new, I'm willing to bet, those of you, Storm Carlin, let's see, who else? Zach Jansen, Lushka, maybe. I think I've seen Lushka. Perhaps you haven't done this. I recommend that you go anywhere on YouTube and type in this, Hool breath, H-U-U-L breath. Go type that in and go do that, and you'll know what this person is talking about. That is something that not only do I teach, it is my gift to the world. If you just do that practice, 10 minutes a day, a half hour a day, an hour a day, if you just did that practice for the rest of your life, all of these other things you're talking about, opening up the third eye, empowering all of the centers, Kundalini, Shakti, connecting to the gods, shamanic traveling, you would gain all of that just through that practice. That's how powerful and all-encompassing that practice is. You would be doing me honor if you just went and did that, took that gift, instead of asking me a bunch of questions about stuff I never teach. All right? Having said that, you can ask whatever you want. You just have to be prepared that I'm going to respond however I'm going to respond. So I did the Hool breath a few times and my hands feel different and a cooling sensation connects from hands to heart. Is this normal? That is one experience. So keep with it. The Hool breath is one of those practices that it's like they what do they call it? Like they call ginseng, what do they call that? I forget what they call it. But it's something that does a bunch of different things. Something's wrong with you, just take ginseng and it will find its way on how to fix, help to fix the problem. The Hool breath is one of these all-purpose things. If what you need is to release heat, it'll release the heat. If what you need is to get more yin, more earth, more feminine power, it's going to bring more earth power up through the hands and up through the feet, and you might feel a cooling sensation. If what you need is more heavenly energy, it'll bring heavenly energy down. It's just one of these all-purpose things that opens up the meridians, it opens up the chakras, it opens up the heart center and connects the three centers. It's one of those things that does everything. And wherever it is that you're lacking, it will figure out what to do, It'll figure it out on its own. So people might have different experiences. There's different ways to use it. I use it sometimes to purposefully release excess energy from the heart center. Sometimes I use it to balance, and I'll pull energy up from the earth. Then there's the heaven, earth. I think even that one I've given away for free, which I'd be well within my rights to charge thousands of dollars for. Heaven, earth, qigong meditation. If you go to do the Heaven Earth Qigong meditation on my channel, I think there's a playlist for it. You'll get heaven and earth together. Again, that practice in and of itself is a higher, more advanced form of the Hool breath, that if you did that every day for an hour a day for the rest of your life, you'd get everything. So I recommend that. So to answer your question, yes, that is a normal reaction to the Hool breath. Baba Junzo question, does your manifestation mastery course include celestial qigong practices? No. The celestial qigong is its own thing. So people who are doing the 90-day, what I tell people to do is, you need to empower the physical body, the meridians, and the nervous system to handle phase 3 that's coming. Even phase 2, you're going to need it for phase 2. And so you can go to spirittao.com. Somebody, I think, somebody bought something on the courses.thunderwizard.com page that hasn't been bought in a long time. And when I looked at it, I went, oh, they're getting the Celestial Qigong for free as well as something else. So they just got a huge deal. I mean, you guys, if you go on there, there's stuff on there. I give away huge stuff. And sometimes the Celestial Qigong is mixed in with some other whole teaching thing. So make use of that. So you can go to spirittao.com or you can go to courses.thunderwizard.com and you can find it. Celestial Qigong is its own thing and it is the basis. In fact, somebody else asked me a good question. They asked, what about the immortality? practice. So the immortality was something I made a long time ago when I was making my way towards this. And the immortality practice is actually a basis for the 90-day challenge as well. So I would go do all of that stuff if it were up to me. Anyway, what else? Adaptogen. Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. Storm Colin, have you traveled to Kauai? It's very nice there. Are we sitting at a bar asking questions? I mean, are we? What does that question have to do with anything? I appreciate it, but you know, when you and I are sitting at a bar just shooting the shit, then you can ask me about my personal life. Right now, I want to talk about what I'm teaching. If you have a question about that, I'd love to answer that. What else? Nothing else? Nothing else. All right, that's it. So again, I'm working things out. As I said earlier, I am on now Odyssey, which is really great. I ask you to go there and subscribe to me there, thunderwizard.com, thunderwizard, D-O-T-C-O-M. I am on Twitch, so you can go there and subscribe to me there. You can subscribe to me, let's see, where else? Twitter as well. But the main two places that you're going to find me, especially Odyssey. Odyssey has this way of mirroring the YouTube channel. So that way, if YouTube shuts down, I won't lose my whole channel. It'll still be on Odyssey. I'd love to see these other platforms get more subscribers because I think YouTube has far too much power. And you know, the censoring that it's doing is just way out of control. So if it were up to me, I would just take everybody and move on to another site, but that's not going to happen. Lushka, you did say that the gods and ancestors on your 37-minute video. I'm aware that you have never mentioned the dark gods. So it's good to finish your sentences. So I did say that the gods and ancestors come in through the third eye. All right. And then you say, I'm aware that you've never mentioned the dark gods. I'm curious. They can come through. So you're now telling me that's not a question. I don't need a statement. You're now disagreeing with me. You're saying they can come through the third eye, opened up the heart chakra. So Lushka, if you want to interact with me, the best way to interact with me is not to argue with me, not to double down, but to ask questions. So, and to share an experience. So if you say, I had an experience where the dark gods came in through my third eye, that's an experience. You stating it as fact, there's nothing I can do with that. If you tell me that this was my experience, then I'm going to say, oh, that could mean a bunch of different things. Because in my experience, the only way that the dark gods, whatever those are, the only way they can come through is if there is something within you that is inviting them in. It's not because you just opened the third eye and connected to the gods. Because if I open my third eye and I connect to the gods and the ancestors, no dark gods are going to come anywhere near me. In fact, when I go into a haunted house, what happens is the ghost goes screaming out of the place. If I walk into a room and there's somebody who's possessed, that person will get up and walk out. So the idea that you know, what you're telling me is that this is your experience. So that's telling me something else. If you want my help, it's best to interact with me in that way. All right? And don't take it personally. Don't get upset if I don't tell you what you want to hear or I don't tell you in the way you want to hear it. Always come to me with a question or an experience. If you want to argue with me, go someplace else because I'm not going to do that with you. All right? So I understand you're trying your best, and according to you, I did say somewhere that the gods and the ancestors are connected through the third eye. So I don't know what that was, if I was responding to somebody's question or what I was saying. Yes, of course, when you worship, you are connecting your third eye to things outside of you. Just when you do a ritual, when you do a mantra, when you, all of that kind of stuff. But what you want to know is this thing about the dark gods. And you say, they can come through the third eye. Opened up the heart chakra. Again, please write in full sentences. I don't know what that means. they can come through, so the dark gods came through the third eye, and are you saying they opened up your heart chakra? Are you saying this is a good thing or a bad thing? I don't even know what the dark gods are. Are you talking about Loki? Are you talking about a demon? I don't know what you're talking about. Put the time and effort to write things out, give it a context, a subject, verb, object. I know you've got limited space, but just keep writing so that I can, the idea is you want my help. I can't help you if you don't give me all of the stuff. So first off, try again. I'm not interested in arguing with you. If you tell me my experience was this happened, can you explain it to me? I'll try. But if you know better than I do, go someplace else, because I'm not going to argue with you, okay? And my apologies for if I misrepresented myself. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Let's see what's going on here. What else? That was somebody, that's somebody that should be watching me right now, or are they? No. Let's see, what else? DLive.tv has reasonable censorship right now. The problem with DLive.tv is that I'm in Australia and I'm trying to live stream on there right now, but it says DLive is unable to connect. So I'm trying, but it won't. I'm not able to connect there. Oh, look at this! It tells me how many people are watching. So there's one person watching on Twitch, which is me. I'm watching myself on Twitch, I think, and then 35 people on YouTube, and nobody on Twitter, and yeah, and, VK, nobody on VK. All right. So, but there you go. Maybe I can get more people on these other platforms. What else? Let's keep going here. Storm Carlin, if you have a question, come on, put the time and effort. I know you're new to the channel, but you see how other people write question? They do that because when we don't have a lot of people, but if a lot of people are watching and people are just throwing things out there, then I can't see your question. The retarded god enjoys cheese, so we don't really care about that. So we're going to put them in a timeout. Got to have something valuable to say. Storm Carlin is asking, what reasons would one use mudras in the out-of-body state? Again, when did I ever teach anything about doing out-of-body states and mudras? I have no idea what that question's about. Can't answer it because I don't even understand it. Zach Jackson says, I learn a lot watching this random channel. So by random channel means that you just kind of come on here and watch it when you got nothing better to do. Well, I'm glad that you do. I'm really interested in working with people who's actually doing the work. So now that you've told me that, Zach Jackson, I'm going to be less inclined to interact with you. I want to work with people who are serious about this path. You're welcome to come. You're welcome to ask questions. But that's what I'm looking for. Supermanan, question, can horror movies or violent games open one up to demons? No. Nope. People, watch my videos on, I won't waste your time, watch my videos on demon possession to know what really happens with demon possession. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, he is one of my astrologers. So if you go to astrology.thunderwizard.com, you'll see him on there with other people. If you go directly to his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com, I believe he's got a sale where he's giving Vedic astrological readings for 35% off. So you can go check him out. Yeah. So Zach, I mean, it's like, why waste? Zach, why are you wasting your time? I mean, why put? I mean, you got nothing better to do just to watch different channels, and I'm talking. Why not watch a channel with somebody who's just talking about something that doesn't mean anything? I mean, you're welcome to be here. I just don't understand that. I don't do that unless I'm watching television. Is this like television for you? Anyway, yeah, I'm really interested in working with people who are serious about doing the work. All right, what else? Nothing else? Okay, we're all done then. All right, so this is my first foray into streaming in multiple platforms, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do that and schedule on YouTube. What else? Storm Carlin catches me just before I got off. Question: while doing Qigong in the out-of-body state, what does that mean? Again, Storm Carlin, have I ever taught that? Have I ever taught how to do Qigong in the out-of-body state? So you're telling me that you go into some kind of trance, and then you go on to, you do some kind of out-of-body thing, and then you're in your dream trance out of body, you do Qigong? Are you getting high when you do that? Are you smoking weed? Are you taking some kind? None of that is anything I have ever taught. While doing Qigong in the out of body state, I have found it prolonged the amount of time I stayed there. Is this true with you too? I don't do that. If I'm going to go in an out-of-body state, it's not to go to practice Qigong. And the way you're glorifying this out-of-body state, how do you know that you're not just having fantasy? I mean, I can close my eyes and create a fantasy. Does that mean I'm having an out-of-body state? How do you know you're having an out-of-body state? And why does that have such a spiritual charge around it for you? Why is that? I wince and I roll my eyes when people talk about, having out-of-body experiences or doing, what do they call that? I forget what they call it. Anyway, where you project yourself out of your body, and tonight I'm going to do that, and it's just like it sounds like such self-delusionary nonsense to me. How does that do anything for you in your physical body? How does that, when I do the practices that I show you that I'm doing, which are in my physical body, when I'm doing this stuff, there's huge amounts of energy that's coming into my body that afterwards, when I'm done, I can actually do stuff with that energy. Yeah, astral projection. So Strum Carlin, are you telling me that you're astral projecting, and when you're astral projecting, you're doing this? This stuff is about working directly with the physical body that goes into different energy centers within the body. This isn't about some fantasy thing where we sit and fantasize about leaving our body. And I'm not saying that you're fantasizing. Maybe you are leaving your body, but what does that give you? Are you able to go out of your body? And are you able to do this and come back and then physically do something different in this reality? Are you able to levitate and move things around? Are you able to intend your reality? Or is it just some kind of cool thing? Is it like, I just smoked some weed and I tripped out? Is it just a trip that you put yourself on? How does it change your physical body? Do you get more healthy? Are you able to bring in more prosperity in your life? Are you able to have better relationships? What physical things are you able to bring back? Because in my case, my thinking is, at best, if all it is an experience you have outside of the body, if that's all that you're getting out of it, and it makes you feel good, and it feels like I just watched a really cool movie on television, then I can't say there's anything wrong with it, but I wouldn't put it in the category of Qigong. I wouldn't put it in the category of meditation. I wouldn't put it in those categories at all. I would put it in the category of escapism. Astral traveling is great if when you astral travel, you come back with something. People do shamanic journeying, I find a lot of times, to escape. But shamanic journeying, let's talk about shamanic journeying, because you're talking about astral body states. Shamanic journeying was invented, discovered, perhaps 100,000 years ago, by human beings that had very real physical issues that they need. Bear in mind, our ancestors lived in a physical world. People nowadays don't live in the physical world. That's why you can have an election, and you have the country split in half and one half of the country doesn't believe the election and the other one does. It's because you've got now a society of people who don't know how to reality test themselves in reality. There are people out there that don't know what reality is. They don't know what to believe. But you can astral project all you want and that becomes real for you. I've known people who they do that and their life is more real in their astral projection in this life. In fact, they don't feel like this is real. That is out of balance. That is somebody who's escaping themselves. That is not spirituality. It is not helpful. Unless your journeys bring something back. Your journeys have to bring something back. So there's some tribe in Alaska. Somebody was talking with some medicine man in Alaska, and he was explaining how human beings created shamanic journey. And he said, way back when human beings didn't hunt, they ate roots out of the ground. He's talking about pre-humans. He's talking about pre-humans that are walking around that are, eating roots out of the ground. And then they started scavenging meat. There would be a carcass and they would scavenge the meat and they would eat the bones. And that protein started giving them bigger brains and then they started hunting. But they found that a couple of things happened, that they didn't know where the animals were, number one. And number two, they started having this experience that if they killed an animal and ate it, that they felt attacked by the spirit of that animal. So they started learning how to shamanic journey so that they could figure out where the animals were. That somebody would teach themselves how to meditate, go outside of the body, and go on the other side of that hill are the deer or whatever it is. And if you went around on the other side of the hill and there were no deer there, guess what? It meant nothing. The person had an experience, but it didn't mean anything. It didn't result in anything in this life. So a shaman is somebody who, when they travel, they are doing it to bring something back into this reality, to make this reality better, because this reality is your touchstone. This three-dimensional reality is the whole reason that you were incarnated. To run around out there and, even if it's just in your mind, I got nothing against it. I got nothing against going on a guided meditation. I teach guided meditations. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's about making yourself feel better. But to have this pride about, I go outside of my body and I do Qigong, I want to know what that brings you. If you do that and you come back and you've got some powers you don't have, you got to prove that to me. If you can do that, I'll become your student. Because the only reason I'm doing Qigong is to fill this body with power and to be able to do something with the power that I achieve. I have no interest in just doing it just to entertain myself because I'm bored. So Strom Carlin, you're going to have to prove to me that that actually accomplishes something. You say, while doing Qigong in the out-of-body state, I have found it prolonged the amount of time I stayed there. Means nothing to me. You haven't told me when I'm in the out-of-body state, I find this and I communicate with that. And when I come back in my body, I find that I have more strength and I know what's happening tomorrow and I know what's down the street. I know I've learned how to, I was able to heal somebody of something. You got to come back with some practical thing. Otherwise, at best, it's just entertainment. At worst, it's escapism. Okay, what else? Strom Carlin, it feels good when I wake up. All right, so you're doing a meditation. I don't know why you say it's an out-of-body state. What evidence do you have that it's an out-of-body state? How do you know you're not just going deep into your unconscious mind? I'm saying that because the unconscious mind is a whole universe within itself. The unconscious mind has all kinds of powers and has all kinds of knowledge, has all kinds of incredible incredibly amazing things. I delve into it all the time. I ask my unconscious mind all kinds of things, and it tells me all kinds of stuff. You can connect to gods through your unconscious mind. So all you've told me so far is that it's a meditation and it's a visualization that you do, and that you feel good when you wake up. Good for you. I would encourage you to not spiritualize it and not turn it into something else. Because when I talk about out of body state, I'm not kidding around. An out of body state, if I tell you I had an out of body state, it wasn't because I closed my eyes and I went into a trance, or I went into a deep sleep and I had a dream or a vision. That's something else. If I say I had an out of body state, it means that I freaking had an out of body state. It means that I walked through walls and I was able to go into the next door neighbor's house. It means that I was able to fly across the earth and go someplace. I was listening to somebody else talk. I call them up and say, I heard you talk about me yesterday. That's an out of body experience. Just because you had that, I mean, you had a meditation experience. I'm sorry if you feel like I'm attacking you. It's important. Why am I so strongly motivated by it? I am very concerned about the escapism in society. That's why people are storming capitals. That's why people that's why people are doing all kinds of crazy stuff to themselves and to other people, because they don't know the difference between objective reality and their own feelings. And so, again, you're going to do this kind of stuff. Who taught? What tradition? Where did you learn it? What's the point of it? Who taught you how to do this? All this stuff are important questions. What is it gaining for you? Everything that I'm doing here has a specific purpose. And everybody that, if you listen, everybody, when they start talking about after having done this practice, they'll start telling you of the incredible changes that have happened to them. That their body is changing, that their mind is changing, that their life is changing. They're reversing, in some cases, they're reversing diseases within their body. In some cases, they're actually able to, completely change their reality. In some cases, they're able to emit energy out of their hands. This three-dimensional reality is the point. This is why we're here. This is the most powerful place that you can be outside of being in the spirit realm. The gods wish they could incarnate because they see the power that comes from interacting with three-dimensional reality. There's a practice that the Taoists teach, and the practice of, what is that called? Where you dream and you feel like it's real. What is that called? Somebody knows what I'm talking about. When you wake up in a dream, lucid dreaming. The practice of lucid dreaming, that's something, but it's dreaming. Lucid dreaming, the things that you do in lucid dreaming are things that actually empower you. So if you're telling me that you go in the out-of-body state and practice Qigong because you want to perfect your Qigong in your body here, I'm going to be all for that. But again, the point isn't to go and just feel good, although I'm okay with that too. The point is to go and practice Qigong in the dream state so that when you come back, when you do Qigong in the physical state, you actually get those powers that you were dreaming about. Okay? All right, so I'm sorry that I focused on you so much. It's just, again, this is what happens when new people come on the channel and they start asking me these questions about things I don't teach. You're going to reveal to me something that shows me that's probably going to piss me off or annoy me or whatever. I'm going to find out what's underneath all of it. And you may not like it. You're better off yeah. Anyway, Zach, question, is time travel real? Zach, welcome to the channel. I thoroughly encourage you to actually do something here instead of asking me random nonsense questions. But I'm so glad you showed up, and I hope you enjoy the channel. All right, that's it. I don't see anything else. Whoops, this is where I'm at. Sorry. Odyssey.com, Twitch TV, Twitter, Those are the ones that I'm able to successfully go on. And I'd like for you to go and subscribe to me on odyssey.com, ODYSEE.com. Because as I said, if something happens here to this channel, it's going to be mirrored over there. Twitch TV, if you want to watch me live there, you can. All right, that's it for me, guys. All right, I'm all done. So I will see you all when I see ya.